Okay, so this is a recording for the lecture that should have happened on September the 11th. Sorry we're not able to meet, but the weather got in the way, so I'm going to record a little bit about what we would have covered tomorrow in class. As you're watching it, will be class today. So I'm going to go through a few things. Obviously, this is not going to be interactive with one another, so it's going to be a little awkward, I think, for both me and you a little bit. We're not used to doing this, at least in this particular class setting. So I'm just going to go through a few things that you need to do. You'll need to have this all reviewed, and there will be an attendance assignment that I'm going to put in Canvas that I'm going to make due by 6 p.m. on Thursday, September the 12th. So if you want to be counted as in class for September the 11th, please complete that attendance quiz. It's going to be just like what you normally do on a note card. So no big worries. I'm just going to give you a little something to write about. But you will also have to continue and complete your notebook reflection that will be due Friday, September the 13th. So all of that will be as normal. So I put several things in Canvas, as you can all see. So I put in some reading for you on, will this be on the test, Chapter 1 PDF. So if we click on that, you can see that this was a book. And this is an interesting book in that it talks about, what professors really want you to know about college and how to succeed. So the name of the book is Will This Be on the Test by Dana Johnson. And I found this to be a very interesting read. It's not a hard read, as you all should have known by now. You do need to read these pieces of advice that come from Chapter 1. And the first thing that it talks about is it's not all about you. Well, we're going to read next week Chapter 2, which says, well, really it is all about you. So I don't want you to get offended by the first subtitle of this chapter. It's not all about you. But what it's really talking about in this particular chapter is there's a big difference between being a high school student and how you interacted and what your teacher's expectations were, or even if you were at a community college and transferring to USM. There's a big difference in being an instructor versus being a professor. And that's what this whole chapter is about. And so it's really introducing you to the differences in what a teacher's role is at a institution like ours, a research institution. And so it talks about how college is different from high school. And I would also argue how it's different from a community college. And you all know, as I told you all in class, I went to a community college first. I've experienced it. Absolutely nothing wrong with getting your start at a community college. I did it myself, as I mentioned. So I was a first generation student, went to the local community college to save money, just like many of you are doing. But there is a big difference between instructors at a community college, teachers at a high school, and the professors that you're interacting with now as freshmen or first-time transfers here at the University of Southern Mississippi. And so this talks about those differences, and I think it's very, very important that you understand them. So, and you can see right here the big difference between a college and a university. It's talking about that. But ultimately what this boils down to is you have to realize that faculty at a research institution like ours have responsibilities for teaching, and they should do it well. They should spend time with you during office hours. They should spend time with you and help you learn while you're in your normal classes. However, they have responsibilities that extend well beyond that. Most of my time when I was a regular faculty member, 50% of my time was supposed to be devoted to research in my graduate students, not to teaching my undergraduate class. And while I took teaching my undergraduate class seriously, if I was going to get promoted and tenured and keep my job, if you will, I had to do what mattered for this particular job, this particular position. And so you're going to find that your teachers here have a huge part of their time that needs to be devoted to research or service type activities. That does not mean that they need to ignore you. I'm certainly not suggesting that at all, but I just need you to understand that a faculty member at the University of Southern Mississippi's time is going to be allotted over many things, of which one is teaching you in your classes. So always just kind of keep that in mind, Make sure that you have an appropriate approach to faculty about scheduling time with them. I always tell students that when you're trying to schedule time with me, especially when I was a regular faculty member, send me some times that work for you. Not just one. Don't email and just say, I need to meet with you. Tell me what's convenient. Let me know what's convenient for you. Give me a few options, and then I'll pick one that fits my schedule, and we'll get that scheduled. So that's a way that I think is very respectful of the faculty member's time. It keeps from having a lot of back and forth emails that end up just confusing everybody. So anytime you're going to reach out and want to meet with a faculty member outside their scheduled office hours, send them 2 or 3, maybe 4 days and times that would work within your schedule, and let them pick which one would work for them. And then if there's nothing that works there, they'll certainly reach back out to you. But at least it gives them an opportunity to select at the very beginning without having to have a bunch of emails back and forth. So that's one bit of advice that I would give you as a student. So you can see there's a variety of things that are talked about here. The differences between 4-year schools and schools that offer graduate programs and their responsibilities. So this is a good graphic for you to get an idea of the responsibilities of faculty. You need to know about research. We're going to have some of our faculty from chemistry and biochemistry come in this semester and actually talk to you for about 10 to 15 minutes each about what their research agenda is, because we want each and every one of our undergraduates in our program to actually do research at some point during your career here. And I know many of you have already approached me about how do you get involved in that, and I'm really happy that many of you have reached out already for that. You don't have to do it this semester. I'm not suggesting that everybody needs to be getting involved in research as a freshman or a first-time transfer, but it's something that you're going to have to do at some point, and so it's a good idea to start thinking about that. And again, it is one of the things that faculty are held responsible for. So just another thing that many students don't understand, faculty in the sciences are responsible for finding their summer pay. So faculty don't get paid in the summer. They get paid for the 9 months that they're on campus teaching students, but in the summer they don't get pay. And so the institution expects them to go out and secure grants that pay their summer salary. And so it's very important for their livelihoods. It's very important for their keeping their job and getting good annual evaluations and being viewed positively by our peers. We have to go out and get research grants. And so that's one part of what research is. But you all know what research is. It's trying to solve problems, right, through the use of the scientific method, which we'll be spending time on this semester. We'll actually learn a little bit more about the scientific method than you probably ever wanted to know. And I would invite you to actually reach out to faculty about getting involved in research. And since you're brand new to the university, it would be probably wise to just go in and shadow a couple of labs this semester or maybe next semester and get an idea for what types of work different faculty members are doing. And faculty are usually receptive to taking a student who wants to shadow. Typically, they want to hold off on bringing you into the research lab as a full-time undergraduate researcher, if you will, until you've at least completed organic chemistry, maybe biochemistry 1, depending on your research area. And then you can kind of start working on that capstone project that you're going to need to do for graduation. So a lot of good information in this short chapter. I highly recommend that you read through it, get an understanding of what it is that your faculty are overall responsible for. And then next week we'll have a conversation about this chapter 2. Just kidding, it really is all about you. And I'll show you how even though faculty have a lot of responsibilities outside of the classroom as you all think about the university, they are going to, everything that they do really can incorporate you in their work and lead to some interesting things for you. So let's go to the work, What is an Ethical Chemist? I had intended to spend quite a bit of time on September the 11th talking about ethics, and especially ethics for chemists. This is something that I really don't want to do in this type of format, so I'm going to punt this to next week. But I just want to mention to you that this is one of the most important lectures that I will give you, because ethics is something that is going to shape the rest of your life, and I highly recommend that you read through this short paper. This was a paper written by Jeffrey Kovac. He is considered the expert in chemical ethics, or the ethics of chemists in the chemistry field. And so that's his area of scholarship. That's the research that he does. And this paper is actually basically a transcript of a lecture he gave for an award that he won. And I find it very, very insightful, very, very easy to understand. And it's very important to our field that we have scientists who are ethical and pursue the research and their work in an ethical manner, because we have to have the trust of the public for the work that we do. We do work that impacts people's health. We do work that impacts people's livelihoods in so many ways. If you'll recall from the lecture we had day one, all the things that a chemist can do, all of the different areas that chemists can work in, all require us to function in an ethical manner. And so we'll talk more about this next week. But please go ahead and make sure you have read that before you come to class, because I want to have a lot of one-on-one interactions with you as we discuss the various points that are raised in this article. I think it'll work much better that way than just simply me here talking to this screen right now. So let's see, what else did I had planned? So, I had the interview with former Golden Eagles. So during the pandemic, as everybody was being used to using Teams and Zoom and other things, I took it upon myself to really reach out to some former Golden Eagles, some former chemistry and biochemistry majors, and interview them. This first one is, when she was here anyway, it was Hannah Roberts. She's since gotten married and is now an actual physician. And now she is Dr. Hannah Roberts Badon. And you can listen to her interview and why she chose to pick biochemistry for her career path. I think she has a lot of good wisdom in this particular video. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that next week. But I highly recommend that you, actually I require that you go through and view this video. It will help you. And I have several of these lined up, so throughout the semester you're going to virtually meet several of our former undergraduates and graduate students who graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi and can talk to you about different career paths. Obviously, Hannah went the medical route. Many of you want to go to medical school, and she has some very good information for you. There's a couple others that went to medical school that I've interviewed. But we have some that are now teachers. We have some that are now doing some things that you might not traditionally think of a chemist doing. One of them is a consultant for education projects. And so I wanted to give you all a broad view of what our majors have graduated and gone on and done. So please, every time I post one of these, please make sure you watch it and come prepared to ask some questions, because I think they have a lot of insight. Remember, these folks were sitting where you are sitting not too terribly long ago. And then finally, the Learning Strategies Inventory. So this was, let's see if this pops up. Yep. So remember last week, instead of me handing out a note card, I handed out the Learning Strategies Inventory, and I asked each of you to read each one of the prompts and mark A, if that prompt was true for you, or B, if that prompt was false for you. So y'all got credit for doing that and turning it in, as you'll recall. So I don't know what anybody's particular answer was. But what I have here on the PowerPoint are the learning strategies prompts, along with the percentage of students that responded A. That is, they responded that this is a true statement for them. And so I want to go through these with each of you. We will have an exercise later on, probably next week, that relates to this as well. So if you don't remember exactly how you answered the questions, pause this, go through these questions one more time, and answer them honestly. You don't need to try to fool yourself. Again, you're not going to impress me if you marked everything A. That's not the point. Not everybody needs to have everything A, or as marked as A. But it is important for you all to think about these things, because these are the 10 or 11 things that are really important and predictors of whether or not a student will be successful in college and earn high marks in their class, A's and B's, and progress throughout their college career. And it really does just come down to these 10 things, plus the 11th that I added. So let's go through each one of them. So the first prompt was, I always preview the material that will be discussed before I go to class. Only 33% of you mentioned that is true for you, that you preview the material before you go to class. This one is number one on the list, because if there's nothing else that you can have time to do, this is one that you need to find time to do. Each and every one of you need to be able to make this one an A, that this is true for you. If you go to class without having prepared your mind for what it's about to receive, it will not stick. You have got to prime your mind for the material that you are about to engage with in the classroom. It's an absolute necessity. There's just no other way around it. And that may not have been your experience in high school, but you also have to remember, you're not going to be given much time in college in class to do homework or to read or to do those types of things. And so while you might have been doing that while you were in high school, that's just not going to happen for you here in college. And so if you walk into a classroom unprepared to receive that information, it will likely not stick with you. So just keep that in mind. Think about ways in which you can convert this one to a true. The second prompt, I go over my lecture notes as soon as possible after lecture and rework them and note problem areas. Just under half of you said that this was true. It is very, very important that you, after lecture, and I don't mean immediately after lecture, but within, the same day. So if you get out of class at 5 and you get home at 8 and you've got some time to go through your notes, do it then. That's perfectly fine. If you've got a break in between classes, that's a great time to go over your notes. You don't have to go over these lecture notes for 45, 50 minutes. A 5-10 minute review, looking to see where there were areas that, I took that note down, but I don't really know why I took that note down. You can start to do that. Remember, the information is as fresh as it's going to be at that point. If you wait 24, 48 hours after that to go over those notes, or if you wait till the night before the exam, all of that stuff is cold and no longer fresh. So it's very, very important to make sure that you go over your lecture notes. I would say within 24 hours. Usually the same day is a better time frame to do that. But you also want to note problem areas. So if you have some areas that you didn't understand, you made some notes and you still don't understand it, those are perfect things that you need to take to a meeting with your faculty member for clarification. One of the things I will tell you that faculty really do like is when students come to them for assistance and have specific questions that they can address. One of the most frustrating things for faculty is 2 or 3 weeks before the final exam, or even closer, a student coming in and saying, I don't understand anything. There's just not a whole lot that a faculty member knows how to do with that information. But if you walk into a session with your faculty member during office hours and you say, I tried to work this problem, or I don't understand this in the notes, what were you talking about when I drew this diagram? Those are things that a faculty member can actually sit and help explain to you, and it'll make your learning experience so much better. So I highly recommend you do that. 3, I try to do my homework without using example problems as a guide or copying answers from my class notes. About 2/3 of you answered that this was affirmative. That's a very good thing. I'm glad that number is as high as it is, but it could be higher. And it's very important that in our learning process, that when we're trying to work problems, especially problems in the sciences, that you at least at first grapple with the problem before you turn back to the textbook or your notes. So a little bit of struggle is okay. You obviously don't want to be overly frustrated. I'm not suggesting that at all. But learning is a little bit of a struggle. The learning process does tax your mind a little bit. And if you don't do that, you're not exercising it well. So make sure that you try to do those homeworks first without looking at examples in the book or referring to your lecture notes. Give it a try. Write the problem down. It's always best not to just look in the book and say, okay, that's the problem, and start working on the answer. Write the problem down. Draw the diagrams. Draw the reaction, whatever's going on, and then ask yourself a couple of things. And those things, typically when I'm working a problem or thinking about things like similar to a homework problem, it's what do I know? What do I need to know? And what do I know about getting from there to there? And so if you can do those things, usually you'll be able to help or more easily figure out the problem. But if you have trouble, once you write down what you know and where you're trying to get to, and you have problems in the middle, again, that's a good opportunity for you to go and talk to your faculty member or a fellow student or a tutor in the tutorial center. One of the things that really frustrates faculty and even tutors is when you show up and you say, I don't know how to work these problems, and you open up a notebook and there's no attempt to work the problems. But if I see how you've started working the problem, and I can start to see where you might have gotten frustrated or where your understanding might have failed you just a little bit, and that gives us an opportunity to address the issues that you're having. But if it's just a blank page, again, it's not as productive. 4, I regularly go to office hours or tutoring to discuss problems or questions about the homework. Only 17% of you, less than a fifth of you, answered that this was affirmative. This is another one that I think you all need to really reconsider and think about making that a true statement for you. I want you all to realize that you're not only paying for our time when we're in the classroom with you, but you're also paying our time when you're in or when we have scheduled tutorial center hours or office hours or whatever the case may be. And so if you're not using them, you're really just kind of wasting your money. So it's something that you need to make sure that you're making use of. And again, there's no stigma. There is no reason to feel like going to the tutorial center or going to office hours is an embarrassment. It's not. I had to go to tutorial. I had to go to my faculty members' office hours many times when I was a chemistry major. I can tell you a story when I was a undergraduate, just like you all are. I was taking PChem. I was in Dr. Schaefer's office probably 2 or 3 times a month asking him questions about things because there were some challenging topics that I had to get through. He was an excellent teacher, and he always welcomed me into the class. And I can remember one night I was working in the chemistry library. That was back in the days when libraries for chemistry were actually located in the chemistry building. I was working there as a student worker, as a work study student, and I was doing my homework because nobody was around at about 7 o'clock at night. The library stayed open till 9. And I ran into a problem, and I really couldn't figure out, and I'd look down the hall, and Dr. Schaefer's office light was on, and I went down, and even though he had tired-looking eyes, he was working on a grant, he stopped what he was doing, invited me in, and gave me 5 or 10 minutes of his time trying to help me understand that topic, and I'll never forget that. And I thought that was really a touching moment for somebody that was a distinguished faculty such as him. He's actually, or he was, he has since passed away. He's actually one of the top chemists in his field. He's internationally renowned. So to have somebody like that take a little bit of time out of their schedule for me, it meant a lot to me. And so I think that is an experience that every student should have. 5, I rework all of the homework problems and questions before the test or quiz. Just over half of you said yes to that, and I think that's good. I want to get the other half of you up on that as well, because reworking those homework problems, I can guarantee you most faculty traditionally mirror their exams on the homework problems that they assign. I am not saying that they cut and paste by any stretch of the imagination. But when a faculty member goes through and lists problems for you to work or assigns problems for you to work in the system that is whatever system we're using now in chemistry or math or whatever, those are problems that faculty have spent time looking at, and that means that they find them important. So it should be a hint to you that those topics at least are things that they're likely to examine you on. And so the fact that they've done that, in a way, the homework is your study guide. So keep that in mind. So everybody always asks, are you going to give me a study guide? I gave you the homework problems. Those are the things that you need to study. So reworking them before the test or quiz is a great idea. Not just working them before the test or the quiz, but reworking them. Keep in mind that word, rework, not just working. Prompt 6, I spend some time studying for this class at least 5 days per week outside of class. Only a third of you mentioned that. Now, if you were thinking about this in terms of Chemistry 108, I get that. There's not a lot of studying to do for Chemistry 108. You got to do some reading. You've got to do some prep before you come. And so more of you need to be doing that if that's what you were thinking about. But I'm really talking about your actual content classes. Chemistry 108 is not a content class. This is a class that is here to help you be successful in the major. And while it's important, obviously I believe it's important or I wouldn't be teaching it. You do need to be spending time studying. And remember, studying right versus learning at least 5 days per week. That does not mean that you're spending 3 and 4 hours per class 5 days a week. There's only so much time in a day, but you really do need to be spending time on each and every one of your subjects at least 5 days a week. You deserve a little break on the weekend. Nobody's denying that, but you've got to keep this information fresh. Okay, let's see if I can scroll down here. There we go. 7, I make mnemonics for myself to help me remember facts and equations. Nearly 3/4 of you said yes to that. And so this is a common technique that people will use to memorize things that need to be memorized. So for example, if you've had Gen Chem or you're taking Gen Chem, when you start talking about oxidation and reduction, there's a few mnemonics that you can remember there, right? So oil rig, oxidation is loss, reduction is gain. That's how I always remember. I remember oil rig. I grew up in Oklahoma. It was an oil state. That's one that kind of stuck with me. Others that you might have learned in high school, Leo the lion goes grr. So Leo, loss equals oxidation, Leo, and grr, gain equals reduction. So some people like to remember it that way. But I use oil rig for that one. And there's many other mnemonics that you can use for a variety of your courses in terms of remembering facts and equations or other types of things that you need to know. Prompt 8, I make diagrams or draw mental pictures of the concepts discussed in the class. Nearly 90% of you do that, and that's impressive. I'm glad to hear that, and so we won't spend too much time on it. But making your own mental pictures of these concepts or diagrams in your notebook is very, very important because it allows you to put this learning in your own context. And we all know and understand things a little differently, so that's good. I'm glad to hear that. 9, I participate in a study group where we do homework and quiz ourselves on the material. Just a fifth of you answered yes to that. I hope that changes for you over time. Some of my best memories when I was an undergraduate were time spent in study groups. We even had study groups when I was in graduate school. So it's very, very important to do that. But again, remember, as I mentioned on the first day of class, it's very important that you pick your study groups wisely. Don't pick the study group or people in the study group that just have the axe to grind against the faculty member, because all you're going to end up doing is complaining about the class while you're there. You need to have somebody in your study group that knows something that you don't know, and you need to know something that they don't know. You need to have what I call a synergistic study group. You all need to be able to contribute to the learning process, so keep that in mind. Prompt 10, I rework all of the quiz and test items I missed before the next class session. Very, very important. You all are going to be tempted to, when you get an exam back and maybe you don't get the grade that you thought, you're going to be tempted to wad it up and throw it in the trash can. I highly recommend that you do not do that. Take that exam back with you, and during a study session that you're having, go through and rework those problems. See if you can figure out on your own where you might have missed. Then take that exam to the tutorial center. Have one of the chemistry tutors or math tutors or history lab tutors, whichever class you're in, have them sit down with you on the ones that you couldn't figure out and have them help you figure out where you're having issues. So I was happy to see that over 60% of you do this. I'd like to get that number up a little higher. It is a good practice. Remember, that exam is an assessment, yes, and you're getting a grade for it, but those questions that you missed are learning opportunities. And if you don't take those learning opportunities, you're just not learning, and that's what you're here for. So very, very important. And then 11, this is the one that I added from Nancy McGuire's list, or to Nancy McGuire's list, I should say. So this one's all mine. I realize that I can still do well in this class, even if I've done poorly on quizzes and tests up to this point. I'm glad that over 80% of you realize that. There is almost always an opportunity for you to improve. Most faculty in their syllabus have a lot of low stakes things along the way so that you can miss points on those and still do well in the class. And so when I'm teaching organic chemistry, for example, it is always possible for you to get an A in my class up till the point that you turn in the final exam. Now, not everybody does what I do, so it's very, very important for you to understand what the grading procedures are and the point structure is for the classes that you're in. But keep in mind that there is almost always an opportunity to do better. There's almost always an opportunity to get some type of maybe even bonus points. So keep that in mind as you move throughout your career here at USM. And then finally, Dr. McGuire's book, which was based on her experience while she was at LSU, she was able to correlate students' grades with how many of those 10 items, in her case, students responded yes to. That is, if those were habits and things that you did, these things would lead to a certain grade. And she was able to correlate this. So if a student responded 9 or more true responses, chances are they were going to get an A. That's what makes an A student. An A student will do 9 or 10 of those 10 things. They do nearly all of them. Okay, you can get away with maybe not doing 1, maybe even 2, but this was a high predictor. If you did 9 or more of those things, regardless of the class, your chances of getting an A are much greater. Does that mean you'll get an A? Absolutely not. These are predicted grades over many students over many years. But nonetheless, these are the qualities of a student who earns A's. And so just keep that in mind. Students who answered 6 to 8 of those as true responses typically get B's. Students that do 4 to 5 of those as true responses typically get C's in their courses. Notice this, however, if you're under 3 or under, I should say, chances are you're going to be in the DF range in your course. So think about all of the things that you just responded yes to. And if you're in the 3, 2, or 1 range, or even 0, chances are you're not going to have the opportunity to be successful in your class. And it's real easy for you to just switch some of your habits to move yourself up in the grading scale. So again, everybody has different time constraints. Maybe you can't do all 9 things with your schedule. But if you could do 6, 7 of them, that puts you in a better opportunity to get a B, which is definitely better than a D or an F. And there's nothing that says doing 6 or 8 couldn't lead to an A with a little hard work. Again, these are just predictors. But what I can tell you is that students, when they think, well, the predictions don't apply to me, I think that's the wrong attitude. So just keep that in mind. Think about this as these probably will apply to me, and I think you'll have a lot more success in your college career. So with that, I wish you all a safe tomorrow. I do not anticipate that we will be closed on Thursday. I suspect we'll be back in place on Thursday, so I hope you all return safely to campus, for those of you who went home. And I will see you all next week. Now remember that there will be a attendance assignment that I will post. It'll be available for you on Wednesday, and it will be due no later than Thursday at 6 p.m. So keep that in mind. I will not extend it. So this is an attendance thing, just like your note card. So I'm going to give you a little prompt, ask you to write a little something about it from what we talked about here today, and we'll go from there. So stay safe, and I will see you all next week.